It's really with incredible pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce our keynote speaker for the noon hour, Arianna Huffington. Ms. Huffington has a storied career, and she has an international reputation as a journalist, as an entrepreneur, and as an innovator. Through her vast network, she's committed her career to expanding knowledge, providing perspectives on matters of national and international importance, and more recently on harnessing the power of behavioral change to improve health, both for preventing disease and for optimizing treatment of disease. Ms. Huffington's originally from Greece, but moved to England at age 16, where she graduated from Cambridge with a master's degree in economics. And throughout her professional journey, she has created and leveraged media platforms to educate, facilitate dialogue, and provide balanced perspective on some of the most challenging issues across the globe. For example, Ms. Huffington served as a panelist and an on-air personality for BBC Radio. She co-hosted the series Both Sides Now on public radio, and that forum was used to discuss diverse and often contradictory perspectives on the country's most relevant political issues. In 2005, Ms. Huffington founded the Huffington Post, a unique platform that offers alternative perspectives on the news of the day that now reaches 46 million individuals worldwide. She's also a prolific author who's published 15 books on topics ranging from feminism to art and to personal health. And importantly for our discussion today, Ms. Huffington founded Thrive Global in 2016. Thrive Global is a behavioral change technology company with a mission to improve the world's health and productivity through science-based behavior change. Thrive's methodology of science, storytelling, habit building, and achievable microsteps has resonated with a multitude of audiences, from tech workers and new parents to call center workers and executives of multinational companies. Ms. Huffington and Thrive are bringing these core concepts to the workplace with a deep understanding of this vital linkage between well-being, behavioral change, and productivity. To supplement the work of Thrive, her two most recent books are entitled Thrive, the Third Metric for Redefining Success and Creating a Life of Well-Being and Wonder, and The Sleep Revolution, Transforming Your Life One Night at a Time. Both of these books became instant international bestsellers. Please welcome a friend of the Texas Heart Institute, Arianna Huffington, who will be discussing behavioral change and health outcomes in the age of AI. So I have to tell you, yesterday I filmed a short little snippet for your website on stress management. And I just had to do that. I had to internalize all of the things that I talked about.
Well, I want to thank you and Carrie, the wonderful Carrie, for helping us together with Libby Duke, our head of communications at Thrive, for creating this series that we are doing together around behavior change and science. And what I love is that we are bringing together doctors, scientists, to talk about the power of behavior change, because we want to elevate it. So it's not just seen as a wellness, warm and fuzzy initiative, but hardcore to health. So I'm just delighted to be here with you.
Well, we're so honored to have you, and I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you taking the time. So I guess I would like to start with a very fundamental question. I tried to highlight some of the accomplishments that you've had through your life, but I'm very interested in the last decade, where you've really turned your attention to how behavioral change influences health and how behavioral change can actually transform productivity in the workplace. How did that, walk us through that journey for you and how it led you to Thrive, and then we'll start walking into some of the more recent things you're doing.
Absolutely. But one thing you forgot in my bio is my Houston connection.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I didn't mention that. That's true.
I married a Houstonian, Michael Huffington, and even though we divorced, we remained very good friends. And my dearest friend from these early years when I lived in Houston, Dr. Gail Gross, happens to be here, which is absolutely wonderful. When my children were young, because my in-laws were very involved in the medical community here, we would always bring the children here for everything, even if they needed tubes in their ears. They didn't trust any other medical system except the Houston medical system. So it feels wonderful for me to be back here under your auspices, not to mention the fact that, as Michael keeps telling me, if I had not married him, there would be no Huffington Post, because it would have been called the Stasinopoulos Post. Not have been as successful. So how I went from media to Thrive Global really starts with a personal story. In 2005, I launched the Huffington Post, as you said. In 2007, I collapsed from exhaustion, sleep deprivation, and what was diagnosed at the time as burnout, which was kind of early on as a diagnosis, because it took the World Health Organization until 2019 to identify burnout as an occupational hazard. So I collapsed, hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, and that was the beginning of my realizing that burnout was a huge health hazard, not for me personally, but for the world. So I started covering these issues on the Huffington Post. I wrote 2 books on the subject, as you mentioned, Thrive and The Sleep Revolution. But by 2016, I didn't just want to raise awareness, which I could have continued doing through a media company. I wanted to help people change behaviors. And as Dr. Harpavat said, and how amazing was he? Can we give him another round of applause?
Yeah.
Really incredible. It's so amazing to have a scientist, a doctor, talk about the impact of behavior change, of replacing French fries with apples, of breaking it down to small components. So in 2016, I launched a behavior change technology company to help people go from awareness to action. And we are focusing on 5 behaviors. And these 5 behaviors are the key behaviors that, interconnected, affect our health, as we discussed last night, Joe, more than our genes and more than medical care. Because even though medical care, of course, is incredible, especially when you need surgery or real interventions, health is also what happens between doctor visits. That's the motto of what we are doing in health. So the 5 behaviors are sleep, which is foundational. The only thing I don't like about Tim Walsh is when he talks about we sleep when we are dead. No. If we believe we'll sleep when we are dead, we'll be dead much sooner. And our health span will be much worse. So sleep, foundational for our immunity, our mental health. Food, finally we're recognizing the incredible impact that ultra-processed food, sugars have on our health. Movement, we don't even call it exercise. A lot of people are so sedentary, just moving. Stress management that you talked about so eloquently yesterday, and connection. As we know, we're having a loneliness epidemic, so the power of connection to ourselves and others. So we work in the B2B world with over 100 self-insured employers. And we also work in the B2B2C world, which is working to reach consumers through pharma companies. And this is so interesting, Joe, because you would think pharma companies just want to sell drugs, but that's changing. And we work very closely with Eli Lilly, for example. They launched something called Lilly Direct, because they want to reach consumers directly. And we were talking last night about incentives. The incentive here is that if you change the relationship from a purely transactional relationship of selling a drug to a more emotional relationship where you become the user's partner on their healthcare journey, it dramatically transforms the outcomes, both in terms of reputation, but also in terms of adherence. Right now, as you know, both pharma and the medical establishment in general is having a huge adherence problem. The numbers are staggering. Over 20% of people don't even fill their first prescription. And then the numbers go downhill from there. So if you're involved in someone's daily habits, you're much more likely, through what in behavior change science is known as habit stacking, to improve adherence. So I love when the incentives are aligned, because incentives are superpowers. And if they are not aligned, it's very hard to have change at scale.
So you've touched on so many things. I'm just going to go off script now.
Yeah, go on.
So I think one of the things that you said that resonates with me, and I think will resonate with the people who practice medicine, is in healthcare we have very intermittent touches.
Yes.
We see someone every 3 months or every 6 months or maybe once a year. But what I'm hearing you talk about, which I think is so important to this conversation, is how do you fill in those gaps in time with support? And I think this is so important for us in healthcare, and I love the behaviors that you're focused on because they are so foundational, and there's biology behind each of them, as we've learned today. But I love this concept of filling gaps in with reminders towards behavior change and reminders toward health.
And as you know, as everybody here who practices medicine knows, doctors don't have the time to sit down and walk every patient through what they need to do on a daily basis and on their behavior. So that's where we come in, trying to make it easy. Even if doctors believe in behavior change, what they're most likely to tell their patients is make sure you get enough sleep, eat a Mediterranean diet, and walk, at least, or ideally 10,000 steps. And the patient leaves and has no clue what to do. Because behavior change is not about big generic statements. Behavior change only works if you break it down into what at Thrive we call micro steps. Tiny, daily, incremental steps that over time become healthy habits. Obviously, what Dr. Harpovat said about starting with children is the gold standard. So starting with children has to be a priority, and I look forward to working with Dr. Harpovat to bring his work to the parents of the companies we work with. But 130 million people in America, not to mention what's happening around the world, already have a chronic disease. So we can't, unfortunately, take them back to when they were children. So we need to meet them where they are. And that's through micro steps. So we are working with some of the top behavior change economists, Dr. Kevin Vaught, Dr. David Arsh from the School of Medicine at Penn, BJ Fogg at Stanford, to actually be able to create what Kevin Vaught calls a behavior polypill. So you are given your pill, but it comes if you're already sick, and Dr. Ballantyne is great about saying, let's also focus on prevention, because even if you already had a heart episode, how do you prevent the second heart episode? But the point is that if you're already on a drug, if you already had surgery, what's the behavior polypill that comes along with that, broken down into micro steps? And we have literally thousands of micro steps, and we add more every week. And I want to show you one of them, because the whole point about micro steps is that they also have to be emotional. They can't just be dry. You can't just tell people, eat broccoli. We have hundreds of recipes that are really easy to make. We brought in actually famous chefs like Ina Garten and asked them to donate recipes. And they go, and the rules were no more than 5 ingredients and not expensive. And they work, because then it becomes delightful. It's not just like prescriptive. So, but my favorite micro steps are around stress. Because we all know that stress is universal. Is there anybody here who doesn't experience stress? I'd like to meet them. No, it's like there isn't. But cumulative stress is preventable. And it's, as all the cardiologists here know, it's cumulative stress that's the killer. It's not stress in itself. So, again, based on the science that it takes 60 to 90 seconds to move us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system, we've created these 60-second resets that focus on your breathing, focus on gratitude, on images that bring us joy. And we have hundreds of them that are preloaded on our platform, but my favorite is creating your own reset with things that give you joy and remind you at a moment when you are stressed, you can be reminded of what you love about your life. And gratitude cannot coexist with stress and anxiety. And what I'm telling you is neuroscience-based. I stress that because it sounds like hockey, right? It sounds like a Hallmark card, but it's not. There's tons of science behind it, as you know.
Yes.
So let me play you my reset. And we also made a partnership with Universal Music, so we can take 60 seconds of Universal Music songs and play them without being sued. And then you can keep adding things to your reset. As you can see, my reset ends with my grandson, who is now 2. He was younger here. And therefore, new things come into your life that bring you joy. You can update your reset. So.
I think I'm going to use yours.
So it also comes with the Carpenter song on top of the word. You can change the music. This is Ave Maria.
Yeah.
But actually what you said is so interesting, because even though this is not based on your life, it still has an impact on all of us. And we play it in our office, our team meetings. We spin a wheel and one of us plays the reset because it creates more intimacy.
Yes.
And especially in a hybrid world, suddenly you have a glimpse of somebody's life. In 60 seconds, we have brought this to contact centers. Call center agents are so pressed and stressed. There aren't many jobs where you are regularly yelled at. And and we just play them 3 of these during the day, depending on the triggers the employer decides, and the impact is unbelievable. And one of the companies we work with, Synchrony, did a survey asking, would you rather have a 5-minute break rather than a 60-second reset? Mm-hmm. And 78% of people said they'd rather have a 60-second reset. And the reason is that normally, if you're given a 5-minute break, what are you going to do? You're going to doom scroll the news and get more stressed. You're going to go on TikTok or Instagram and get more stressed by comparing our messy lives to some highlight reel. So this is like pre-programmed to activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
I love it. It's brilliant.
We'll make you one.
You tried, but I felt a little bit vulnerable sending you, pictures that were me.
Okay, we'll keep trying.
But you started to touch on something that I think is very interesting, and for a group of people who practice medicine or are in science. Let's talk about dose. Let's talk about the dose of this. You said people prefer a minute as opposed to 5 minutes. What about the frequency during the day? Should it be scheduled or should it be triggered? So that if something's happening to you, you can pause. Like, what do you know about that so far?
Great idea. The more these things are pre-triggerable, the better. Because sometimes when you are stressed, you can't even think of playing your reset. So we bring Thrive wherever people are. You don't have to download the app. If you work on Slack, we bring it to you on Slack. If you work on Microsoft Teams, we bring it to you on Microsoft Teams. Of course, it's always available to you on the web or in the app to download it yourself. And the more you get the value, the more likely you are to do that. But also, if we see that you've been in wall-to-wall Zooms, we'll feed you a 60-second reset. And the new company that we've just launched, which is an AI company, and it's a partnership between Thrive and OpenAI, this new company is building an AI coach. And the reason why this is possible through AI is because the incredible magic of AI is hyper-personalization. So we were talking last night about what if we know that your grandmother comes from El Salvador and she makes certain dishes that you love, so the coach that has a superhuman memory because it's based on AI and has been trained not just on peer-reviewed data around the power of behavior, only peer-reviewed literature, not on the whole of the web, to avoid hallucinations or all the problems we've seen, but also on everything about you, Joe, everything about me, every preference, every recipe you like, every piece of music you like, every piece of poetry you like. So that is really what they call in AI lingo the context windows, meaning how many data points you can include can be billions and soon, according to Sam Altman, trillions. So the whole Socratic admonition of know thyself is really becoming true, and it doesn't forget. Because you may not remember a song you loved in 3rd grade, but if you feed it into the LLM model, it will never forget it. So the goal of this AI coach will be to democratize health outcomes. Because right now, health inequities are growing. And I don't know if Dr. Sharma is here, but talking to her yesterday, I just love what she's doing around health and underserved communities. Because now in Sun Valley, which is, the big Herb Allen conference, one of the biggest successes was Peter Attia talking about the power of behaviors on health. And everybody with resources is doing something about these behaviors. But millions of people are every year left further and further behind.
Yes.
And we need to change that, because we can't live in a country where more and more people are getting sick every year while we spend 18% of our GDP, over $4 trillion, on healthcare. There's something wrong and unsustainable with this picture. And what brought it home to me, there are thousands of statistics, like 20 million, Dr. Huffington said, of deaths because of liver disease. That's staggering.
Yes.
But one number that I can't get out of my head is that last year in America, there were 150,000 amputations because of diabetes. Now, diabetes, even if it's not preventable, is a completely manageable disease. So the idea that the healthcare system and people's lives are dealing with 150,000 amputations, and coming from journalism, I like to put flesh and blood on the numbers. So there's a story in the New York Times, I highly recommend you look at it, about San Antonio becoming the amputation capital in America. And they had a story and a picture of a man, a robust-looking man, 39 years old, record producer, called Robert Perez, being fitted with a prosthetic. And he said, when I was diagnosed with diabetes 4 years ago, I never thought it would come to that. In 4 years, you went from being diagnosed with diabetes to losing your leg? Do you know what that means? This man's life forever changed, his family's life, the community life, the costs. Surgeries, prosthetics, yes. Surgery complications. I'm sorry.
I think we agree. And, I've had so many conversations, and, we had wonderful conversations last night, but Dr. Galati was relating a story to us last night about a young person, an adolescent, who had come to his office. And Joe, I don't mean to hijack your story, but I'll do the best I can. An adolescent, a high school kid, whose pediatrician sort of said, well, your child's a little bit heavy. You should eat better. We'll see again in a year. And this went on and on. Finally, this child ended up with abnormal liver tests in Dr. Galati's office and has stage 3 fibrosis. And you confided in me and said, there's no way this child will get through college without a liver transplant. And so I appreciate it. And so here's another question for you about this methodology of behavior change. Do you think that focusing on the 5 behaviors can influence people's commitment to the health issues that we've talked about today? Do we have a linkage between that sort of, I would say, regaining self-control in some ways, resetting yourself, focusing on things that make you feel healthier, and other health outcomes like being able to control your diabetes or taking your medicines, or all of the sort of issues that we've focused on this morning?
Oh, absolutely. And we have a lot of data on that. Let me give you an example. One of the companies Thrive works with is Walmart. And so we work with a lot of minimum wage associates, as they call their employees. And also Walmart gives us $1 million a year to spend on financial incentives.
Hey.
And we run what we call challenges, where for people, they decide what their goal is. And when they meet it, they write a piece about it, which is published to others within Walmart, and that's how they participate in the challenge. And the top award is $50,000, which is almost double what some of the associates make. And the person who wins it, it becomes a big deal. Like the executives come to the store, the whole store celebrates them, and all that is important because it encourages others to get involved in the challenge. And I'll just give you the story of one associate who won this top prize. We are now in our 6th year, so this program is really working. And she lost 34 pounds. She has a really hard job. Her job is to stock shelves in an upstate New York Walmart store from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. That's hard. That messes up with your circadian rhythms. But nevertheless, she lost 34 pounds. And she wrote a piece which was so moving. I actually have it on my desk. It moves me to tears every time because she said it wasn't just about winning the money and losing the weight. It changed her life. It changed her relationships with her children, her husband. She said, I now can see that I'm not passing on these generational habits, which would mean my children would end up obese.
Yes.
And the priority, the first thing she did and wrote about is they stopped eating fast food and she started cooking at home. Cooking at home is like at the heart of all these changes. And she actually said proudly and included a picture, if you come to my kitchen now, it's stocked with tangerines and almonds rather than chips and cookies. So it's doable, is my point. And you need to throw everything at the problem, starting with these micro steps. Self-insured employers now have a big incentive because healthcare costs are going up every year and outcomes are getting worse. I mean, every day you read more things. Like 2 days ago, cancers among people under 50 going up by 50%, the connection to ultra-processed foods. So we have so much data now about how things are getting worse. And we are working with a lot of the companies that we partner with to bring the AI coach to them. Disney and Adobe are our launch partners. And what interests them, again, is the fact that everything can be hyper-personalized. You can reach particular cohorts. You can reach people who are dealing with diabetes, people who are dealing with cardiovascular disease, and as well as the general micro steps, which are pretty universal. Every disease has its own micro steps. If you are on GLP-1s and dealing with weight issues, you need to build your muscle. So exercise becomes even more important. So as well as our generic micro steps, we are building condition-related micro steps. And we, as well as Eli Lilly that I mentioned, that we are working on the diabetes, obesity, migraine, and Alzheimer's drug, which just got FDA approval. We are working with Pfizer on the Living with Cancer outreach. And I'm just really optimistic about the way we are now bringing the impact of these behaviors into what doctors and pharma companies deal with.
Right. So I'm very intrigued by this idea of AI-generated health coaching.
Yes.
And because there is data to suggest that sort of gender matching, race matching, ethnicity matching, in a physician or healthcare provider-patient relationship tends to be more effective. And if you couple that with this idea that physicians are only seeing, or healthcare providers only seeing patients very intermittently, this idea that you could supplement that with an AI-generated health coach that a person could relate to
Yes.
is really exciting. I think there's been so much prognostication about whether AI will either make the world infinitely better or infinitely worse. I think this is one of those ways that AI could really have a dramatic impact on healthcare.
Absolutely. And if you think of it, at the moment, the focus on AI has been either productivity, that it will make our lives more productive, it can make your PowerPoint presentation faster than you ever can, etc., etc. And that, I'm not minimizing that, it's incredibly important. Or it's razzle-dazzle, magical things. You text and it turns into video. Or as at the Apple Developer Conference, they said your wife can send you the title of a podcast she wants you to hear, but actually forget to give you the actual title. But this much enhanced AI will find it for you. And I think to myself, really? Like, that's like something to celebrate? Do these people need marriage counseling? So it's either productivity, razzle-dazzle, or when it comes to health, improving diagnostics and accelerating drug development, incredibly important. But what can we do about people's health right now? And that's about behaviors. And that's why I'm so excited about that. And as you said, data is the key. And you can give to the model all your data that you want to give them. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of privacy guardrails, etc. But I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I'm wearing an Aura ring to track my sleep. You may be wearing a Fitbit or a Whoop. The guy we brought on to run the AI health company that's called Thrive AI Health was running health and wearables at Google, the Carlos Love. So bringing in wearable data, lab data, all that together. And it's particularly important because more and more people now want agency over their healthcare. We have over 60% of people who regularly go to Google to diagnose themselves, which has a lot of problems, but it's also an indication of how people want to take matters in their own hands. And the thing about the AI coach that's also going to be great is it doesn't judge you. You know, people have been so judged about behaviors that they're feeling like, I don't want to do that anymore. We hear that a lot, like, especially because our behavior change expectations are, I'm going to make these amazing New Year resolutions. I'm going to give up all sugar. I'm going to go to the gym an hour a day. And most of us abandon them within 3 weeks, right? That's the
data.
That's the data. And then we don't just abandon them, we feel defeated. We feel, I'm not getting back on that horse again. Let me just finish off this Oreo cookie bag. And so the AI coach is going to be like the GPS in your car. Like, you know, if you take the wrong turning, it doesn't judge you. It doesn't say, oh, Arianna, God, again, you should be turning right. No, it simply recalculates. That's the same thing with the AI coach. And there is data that shows that people prefer sometimes a coach that's AI rather than a human coach, because I mean, there are some phenomenal human coaches, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them are not. And they can't help themselves but showing that you're being judged. And you mentioned earlier kind of control and self-control, but behavior change, if you depend on self-control and discipline, it's not going to work. You've got to make it easy on yourself. And that starts with creating your environment. You know, if you're an alcoholic, and you have a bottle of wine on your nightstand, it's not good. If you are tempted by cookies and you fill your kitchen with things that you are tempted by, it's not good. So you have to clean up your environment. Little by little, you've got to make it easy on yourself. Because 45% of our lives are built on habits. So if you build healthy habits, little by little, it will make it easier. Because self-discipline is not an infinite resource.
Okay.
And so anything we can do to make it easy, that's what I'm saying, make it delightful. We have an accountability buddy, as we call it, somebody that you can support each other on the journey. We have tons of support now, and that will be augmented through the AI coach on this journey. And then, of course, you pick, do you want to communicate with your coach in text, voice, whatever you prefer. And the coach is also going to be amazing about swaps. Like, we have a phenomenal nutrition director, Tess Bredesen, who is working on all the swaps. And, you know, if you say, what are you having for breakfast? And you say, I'm having fried eggs and fried potatoes and whatever, you know, whatever is the West.
Texas breakfast.
Yeah, Texas breakfast. The coach isn't going to say, oh, can you change that to 2 boiled eggs and a gluten-free piece of toast? No, it will actually give you alternatives that are delightful, but even just like very simple. If you like fried chicken and you cook it in avocado oil rather than peanut oil, it makes a difference. So you start small. And that's really her specialty, is finding swaps that you begin to like and enjoy.
This has been an amazing time with you, and I know that everybody has appreciated this. What I'd love to get from you at the end of our discussion is your perspective on how we, as healthcare providers, how do we begin integrating this into the way we counsel people? You know, most of the people in this room are going to walk out of here and on Monday morning are going to have an office full of patients.
Yes.
How do we take this concept now and really begin to drive change, especially around the concept of micro steps and behavioral change, or I'm going to even go and say behavioral empowerment?
Yes, I love that.
What is your recommendation for how we do that Monday morning?
Well, first of all, I love your question, because like you, and like I think everybody in this room, I have a sense of urgency. I want to do this Monday morning. And if anybody's seeing patients Saturday or Sunday, Saturday or Sunday. And I think we start where we are. You know, even if you mention to your patient, even if you take 60 seconds to say, you know, these 5 behaviors matter, not everybody knows that. Anything you can do in small steps to improve them. We are delighted to make our content available. Anybody who wants to connect with me, Arianna at thriveglobal.com, Libby at thriveglobal.com. We would love to share things. This for us is a public service announcement as well as a business. Any doctors or scientists or healthcare professionals who are in the room, or people you know, whom we can put on video talking about it. We would love to continue the series that we started with the Texas Heart Institute here. We want this to be an ongoing project. We can get hundreds, thousands, and all these then go everywhere we meet patients and users, including all over Lilly Direct, for example, which is going to reach millions of consumers around the world. So please spread the word. We'd love to continue this series. And, you know, even Dr. Galata, apparently you are Libby's favorite, I have to say. And, you already did a video, but maybe there are other thoughts and other ideas, and we can make it very simple, because I know how busy everybody is here. But that spreads the word. And also colleagues who are doctors and scientists, when they hear from you, it's much more powerful than hearing from me. Because I'm not an MD. And honestly, you have no idea how powerful it is to hear from MDs and scientists. We are working on a big cultural transformation. Yes. And big cultural transformations require trust and people with the authority to speak from their own experience based on data. But I really believe that it's in the zeitgeist. I believe in the zeitgeist that, all of you here have known about behavior change for a long time, but something is happening.
Yes.
And there's something in the air, and we need to take advantage of it because people's lives matter. And there's way too much unnecessary suffering at the moment. So I am just incredibly grateful to you for bringing us all together for this platform that we can use and augment so that we can reach more and more people and have a bigger and bigger impact and collect patient stories too.
Yes, they're powerful.
They're very powerful. And I didn't know about the Apple's and McDonald's story. So how can we amplify that story? Because these small changes can make a huge difference. We call our micro steps too small to fail. And another big belief we have is in what we call the miracle drug of behavior change. Both on its own for prevention and in partnership with other drugs for the management of disease. So thank you so much. Consider us at Thrive your partners on this journey.
Well, you have a coalition of the willing here, which is, I can't thank you enough for spending the time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.